Tanya Chutkan must revoke Trump's bail in the election subversion case in Washington and order him to jail. Somebody, somewhere, has to begin to use the law against Trump rather than continuing to enable him to use it against America. Trump has now violated his gag order in the Washington case, and he has violated the terms of his release on bail in the Washington case, and he has confessed he did too want to go watch his militias attack the Capitol on January 6th. He can't talk about witnesses, quote, concerning their potential participation in the investigation or in this criminal proceeding, which is exactly what he did do in Manitowoc, Wisconsin, as he first called Cassidy Hutchinson crazy, then claimed she changed her testimony about how he tried to convince the Secret Service to take him to the Capitol on January 6th, and then admitted he did try to convince the Secret Service to take him to the Capitol on January 6th, meaning he has been lying all this time. The gag order and bail violation first.
Instead, Debbie, I want to go down there. These people are crazy. And then I think she changed her testimony. You heard that because the people testified that none of this stuff happened. No, these people are crazy.
And Trump confesses to the meaningful part of Cassidy Hutchinson's testimony, that as his scum organized to try to sack the Capitol and kill legislators and maybe the vice president and begin his coup attempt, he wanted to be there to watch.
I sat in the back. And you know what I did say? I said, I'd like to go down there because I see a lot of people walking down. They said, sir, it's better if you don't. I said, well, I'd like to. I'd better if you don't. All right, whatever you guys think is fine.
There can be no further evasion of this. While under threat of imprisonment if he violates the gag order in the hush money election interference case in New York, he has now violated the gag order in the election subversion case in Washington. Judge Chutkan has no further excuses. Revoke his bail. Somebody, for once, for God's sake, for America's preservation, draw the line in the sand. Put Donald Trump in jail now. Trump had not given a rally since his rage fest in Schnecksville, Pennsylvania on April 13th. And if you are wondering why not, and these little issues of violating his bail and violating the gag order and confirming Cassidy Hutchinson's testimony, if they do not provide sufficient explanation, here's why not. He has gone absolutely nuts. Can't talk. Can't pronounce things, can't tell up from down, and can't subtract the number 3 from the number 4.
3 years ago, we were a great nation, and we will soon be a great nation again. Vegan restaurant, supposed to be really good. I'm not into the vegan stuff, I must say, but I'm going to have to try this. When we come here in a short period of time into Milwaukee, we're going to come and try that vegan food. With the GOP growth plunging by more than 50%, $1.2 trillion for their fake infrastructure.
Yes. The good old days. Once again, we return to Trump's infrastructure parrot week. Infrastructure parrot. And by the way, I am kind of agnostic about the campus protests, but if anybody involved in them or sympathizing with them really thinks Trump would be a better option for Gazans or for Palestine or for those of Arab descent or Muslims or Jews or basically anybody except pasty white guys, you are nuts.
Crooked Joe is now reportedly planning, this is wonderful news for you people in Wisconsin, to bring massive numbers of Gazans from the Middle East all live to your American towns, your towns and villages. Under no circumstances shall we bring thousands of refugees from Hamas-controlled terrorist epicenters like Gaza to America. On day one of the Trump presidency, I'm restoring the travel ban, suspending refugee admissions.
Muslim ban and no Gazan refugees. Donald Trump's policy. Every day we continue to permit depraved J. Trump to participate in our national political discourse, we play with fire. Because somebody is lying, and somebody is crazy, and somebody is racist, and somebody is violating every law on the books, and somebody is an existential threat to our lives. And it's Trump. And is the Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich still being held prisoner by the Russian government because Putin and Trump made some sort of deal to keep him there? Or perhaps because Putin told Trump that he was going to keep him there to try to improve Trump's chances of election in the fall? And has Trump just let that cat out of the bag about some kind of sick, demented deal that keeps an American journalist, an American citizen, an American hostage in Russia and thwarts this nation's efforts to free him? We know that via proxies, Nixon helped stall the Vietnam peace talks in 1968 until after that election. And we know that via proxies, Reagan made sure American diplomats remained hostage in Iran in 1980 until after that election. And we know Trump has a team in the field today, worldwide, conducting illegal shadow diplomacy, reassuring our enemies to ignore the actual American government. And this disloyal conspiracy by Trump and his minions is powerful enough and influential enough that far-right Polish President Duda met Trump in Manhattan a week ago, and the Hungarian fascist Orban was at Mar-a-Lago in March, and even the former failed British Prime Minister, now Foreign Minister David Cameron, went there and fed the narrative that Trump cares about any other country longer than it would take him to assess whether or not that country will help him get power, get money, and get out of going to jail here. And then there is the ever-consuming, unsolved issue of Trump's role with Putin. Is Trump the blackmail victim? Is he the marionette? Is he the rubles recipient? Whichever way it finally proves Trump has been compromised by Russia, it would seem the manipulation of the life of one poor guy who is just reporting on the Wagner Group wouldn't be that heavy a lift for Trump or Putin to manipulate further. But the slip Trump has now made, it was buried in the extraordinary mountain of horrors in the Time magazine interviews with Eric Cortellessa. It's just so odd that if and when you hear Trump bring up the Biden administration's inability to get the Wall Street Journal's reporter released and start campaigning on it, you will know that that's just the back end of another big Trump-Putin fix. It starts with this salient reality. If not a Biden failure, this certainly is not a Biden success. For Trump's crowd, this is an easy-to-digest story. Among journalists, it is understandably a cause célèbre, which they will give the benefit of the doubt to. And Trump has tried to own the subject of American hostages in the past. They never would have been taken. He would have gotten them released. He would have gotten them home safely, Otto Warmbier notwithstanding. And yet Trump has been stone-cold silent about Gershkovich. It's worth reviewing the transcript of the Time interview. Cortellessa asked Trump, quote, "We just passed the one-year anniversary of Evan Gershkovich's detainment in Russia. Why haven't you called for his release?" Trump flails. "I guess because I have so many things I'm working on, I have hundreds of things, and I probably have said very good things about him. Maybe it wasn't reported." Probably? Even for a man with as profound a series of brain dysfunctions as Trump has, that is a remarkable word. I probably have said very good things about him. In point of fact, as late as March 29th, Trump, and separately his campaign, were pressed for answers about Gershkovich's imprisonment. The Wall Street Journal, his employer, asked in print, "Why the silence, sir?" Trump did not answer. Trump's campaign did not answer. But back to this Time interview. He is again asked if he will call for Gershkovich's release. The exact question does not mention the man's name. It's simply, will you do it now? Trump replies, you're talking about Wall Street Journal? He can't even remember the name of the man mentioned 30 seconds earlier in the interview. Oh, I would certainly call. I'll call for it right now in your story if you'd like. But I do have many, many things. So far, it's just the usual word salad and backfill and bullshit, tinged with something that reads at least, like fear, maybe fear of saying the wrong thing from Putin's perspective. But then comes the slip. Quote, here's a difference between me and Biden. I'll get him released. He'll be released. Putin is going to release him. However did he come up with that? How in the hell would Trump know that Putin is going to release him? How in the hell does this man, whose entire life has been spent not giving black and white answers to anything, whose spirit animal is the waffle, how in the hell does he go from not remembering Evan Gershkovich's name 1 minute to guaranteeing something that in the real world seems more remote every second? I'll get him released. He'll be released. Putin is going to release him. And then it gets, amazingly, weirder. Trump wanders into criticism of Ukraine and then back again. Quote, I get along very well with Putin, but the reporter should be released and he will be released. I don't know if he's going to be released under Biden. I would get him released. Yes, I'm surprised with Biden. Well, I'm not surprised with anything with Biden, but I think it's a terrible precedent, unquote. Who knows what he means by a terrible precedent, but you can almost hear the mice running around in that one wheel, still powering Trump's enfeebled mind. He's desperately trying to figure out what to say without saying Putin is holding the reporter until releasing him helps Trump. What he does say is, quote, I'm very surprised he hasn't been released, but I will get him released if he's not released by the time we get to office. So Trump gets baited into talking about someone he has clearly been told not to talk about. He then matter-of-factly guarantees that Putin will release him. He then guarantees Putin will not release him under Biden. And finally, he offers both remaining scenarios that he, Trump, will get Gershkovich released if Gershkovich has not been released by the time we get to office. In other words, get him released in that window between the election and the inauguration, by which point Putin would know Gershkovich would have no more value as a hostage, and his release would only work to Trump's benefit. It stinks. And as the disloyal treachery of Nixon on Vietnam and Reagan on the Iran hostages shows, it's not even unique to Trump. It's a Republican oldie but goodie. Trump just no longer retains enough control of his bodily functions, including his brain, to not spill the beans. So let me ask it again. Is the Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich still being held prisoner by the Russian government because Putin and Trump have some sort of agreement to keep him there? My thanks, as always, to the estimable Brian Beutler for bringing this up in his story. Also of interest here, Marjorie Taylor Greene wants to make the country safe for people who proclaim that the Jews crucified Jesus. Jesus H. Christ. That's next. This is Countdown.
This is Countdown with Keith Olbermann.
procession is endless. Once again, still more new idiots to talk about. Yes, it's the daily roundup of the miscreants, morons, and Dunning-Kruger effect specimens who constitute today's worst persons in the world. The bronze, worse. Do you like watching the sports on the television? Yeah, well, good luck. Diamond Sports and Bally Sports, and if you remember, these are the companies running countless regional sports TV networks across the country. It went bankrupt last year, and it stopped pumping hundreds of millions of dollars into the sports industry, and things got so bad so fast that by September, the San Diego Padres basically had no money left to meet payroll, and they had to get an emergency loan of $50 million, and then they had to trade superstar Juan Soto to the Yankees. In bankruptcy, Diamond Sports and Bally Sports keeps televising all or some of the games of 51 different teams in baseball, football, basketball, hockey, soccer. It has managed to stay alive and on the air with about 80% of the nation's cable carriers, but not with Comcast cable. The deal expired, no new deal, so at 11 p.m. Tuesday night, as your Nashville Predators, what a wonderful name, began their comeback that would end with them beating the Vancouver Canucks to stay alive in their opening round NHL playoff series, Predators fans watching on Bally Sports South on Comcast suddenly saw the game disappear. Bye, Felicia. Please enjoy instead this colorful test pattern. And no, Comcast and Bally Sports have not resolved it. The game was, however, on the Turner playoff broadcast, where the promo announcer has described the Vancouver team as the Canucks. Really working it at Turner. The runners-up were Jordan Conradson and Kevin Monkla. They are right-wing conspiracy theorists and political writers and sources, and how bad are their reputations? The lawsuit by Shay Moss and Ruby Freeman against the right-wing conspiracy site and propaganda outlet Gateway Pundit has produced evidence that the director of operations at Gateway Pundit, they have one, and their associate editor, they have one of those, traded text messages, quote, expressing major concerns as to the professionalism, reliability, and honesty of several contributors, including Jordan Conradson, expressing concerns that a contributor engaged in plagiarism and made claims without any sources, unquote. This is according to the newspaper The Guardian. The Guardian does not quote anything, any kind of text or anything else about Conradson directly, but about the other guy, Monkla. There is a reported text from Gateway Pundit's lawyer. They had a lawyer, too? Reading, quote, Monkla is a known fabricator. I wouldn't publish anything he produces. A goddamned fraud. Now understand what this means. Within the context of far-right circles, people say, yeah, I read that, but I read it on the Gateway Pundit, so who knows if it's true or not. I mean, the Gateway Pundit has less credibility than what's the turd with cat turd guy? Cat turd looks askance at the Gateway Pundit. People at the Gateway Pundit doubting right-wingers is like Trump getting up one day and saying, now this may or may not be true, but I'm told Democrats are in favor of mail-in voting. But take what I'm saying here with a grain of salt. But our winner, the worst Marjorie anti-Semite Green. You often wonder how the true scumbags in our midst will meet their inevitable ends. Well, we may be seeing this playing out in real time for the Barney Rubble of the Georgia congressional delegation. First, Trump whacked her over Ukraine and Mike Johnson. The Democrats are not only helping Republicans thwart her plans for the speaker, but they may bury her motion to vacate the chair when she finally files it. And now she has made a huge mistake. It won't play as a huge mistake in her own district, but it will in, most of the rest of the country. I know you won't believe this, but the fascists did some stunt legislating yesterday. H.R. 6090, the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act. Because, of course, they're holding off on another bill called the Anti-Palestine Awareness Act. Lots of reps from both parties voted against this for a variety of reasons, including the fact that it's a stunt that simply lists 10 examples of anti-Semitism that it would declare, if passed, examples of anti-Semitism. We're going to pass the Sun Rises in the East bill next week. That's going to be a good one. But Margie was smart enough to publicly state why she voted against this Anti-Semitism Awareness Act, and her answer is not good, Bob. Anti-Semitism is wrong, she writes, and her deviated septum somehow comes through even in print. But I will not be voting for the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act today that could... Here it comes, you ready? I will not be voting for the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act today that could convict Christians of anti-Semitism for believing the gospel that says Jesus was handed over to Herod to be crucified by the Jews. Yeah, she only spelled Jews with one W. That was me just adding a little element of inflection to it. So in a stunt bill going nowhere that no one will remember, that will be replaced next week by the Republicans' anti-environmentally sound stoves, Save My Mesquite Awareness and Barbecue Act of 2024, Marge decided to publicly put on the record by announcing that she believes that Jesus was crucified by the Jews. The original component, the big timer, the ground zero of the Holocaust and all anti-Semitism. Nice work, genius.
Possibly a contemporary example of anti-Semitism, according to this bill, could be the very belief that we all believe in the gospel, if you're a Christian, is that Jesus was handed over to be killed, and that decision was made by the Jews. According to that definition, that could be considered anti-Semitism.
Marjorie, dumb as a box of Clay Higgins's green. And what's worse, they did it with Rothschild space lasers. Today's worst person in the world! Pew, 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 pew. I've done all the damage I can do here. Thank you for listening today. Countdown musical directors Brian Ray and John Philip Chanel arranged, produced, and performed most of our music. Mr. Ray on guitars, bass, and drums, and Mr. Chanel on orchestration and keyboards. It was produced by TKO Brothers. Other music, including some of the Beethoven compositions, arranged and performed by the group No Horns Allowed. Sports music is the Olbermann theme from ESPN2, written by Mitch Warren Davis, courtesy of ESPN Inc. Our satirical and pithy musical comments are by Nancy Faust, the best baseball stadium organist ever. Our announcer today was my friend Kenny Mayne, and everything else was pretty much my fault. So that's Countdown for this, the 188th day until the 2024 presidential election, the 1,213th day since Dementia J. Trump's first attempted coup against the democratically elected government of the United States. That he wanted to go watch as it happened, and then lied about that for 3 years. Use the justice system, use the mental health system, use the not regularly given elector objection option, use the Donald the Walrus no sleepies bit to stop him from doing it again while we still can. The next scheduled countdown is tomorrow. Bulletins as the news warrants. Till then, I'm Keith Olbermann. Good morning, good afternoon, good night, and good luck.